Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through these calls and bottom line the information for you. Our standard format is to spend a few minutes talking about the situation in Iraq, a few minutes talking about the turnkey program we've put in place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. Last week we had a short call. I mentioned that was due to the fact that I had a pending family issue. The call will again be short today. I apologize for that. Let me just give you a little bit more information. The reason the call was short last week was because my daughter, who lives in Nashville — I'm in Knoxville, but my daughter, who lives in Nashville, was in a serious car accident and was hospitalized. She was just released from the hospital yesterday, and so right after this call, I'm going to be driving up to Knoxville to spend a few days with her. So that's why I want to move quickly through this call. For those of you who are calling in for the first time, I strongly suggest you go to our call of December 1st of last year. In that call, you will get a detailed explanation of the program we've put in place and how you can contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. It has all of the information that you need if you should decide to proceed and establish a trust, but it has a lot of information about us, about trusts, about the revaluation of the currencies, and some other information. So, again, I strongly suggest you do that. I will give you the information about our website at the end of the call, but I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about the situation in Iraq. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or the purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information we believe to be most relevant. And, of course, the most relevant piece of information would be the potential window for the reinstatement of the Iraqi dinar in country. And at the present time, it looks as though there's ample reason to believe that the reinstitution of the dinar could literally happen at any time. And so we need to be prepared. And that's one of the reasons why I strongly suggest you go to our call of December 1st of last year and get a detailed explanation of why you need to get your affairs in order and a trust in place prior to the reinstitution and revaluation of these currencies. So let's talk a little bit about the situation in Iraq. Basically, the key to everything moving forward will be the CBI operations, the Central Bank of Iraq. And remember that the Central Bank of Iraq does have the authority to act independently and make a unilateral decision about the timing for the change in the exchange rate. So let's take a look at what the CBI has been doing. They've been busily establishing satellite banks throughout the Middle East and Europe. Most notably, they've established a series of satellite banks, in Dubai. And that's very interesting because Dubai has very strict regulations in terms of reserves and other compliance issues. So for Iraq to be able to establish satellite banks in Dubai says that they're making the progress necessary toward the reinstitution of their currency. Another reason that this is all looking good is because a substantial amount of funds are being repatriated to Iraq with regard to a lot of funds over the last nearly 2 decades that have been smuggled out of the country. These funds have been frozen in banks in a number of countries, and it's estimated that this could be anywhere from $200 to $600 billion. So this is a substantial amount of money. Add that to the surpluses that they're getting from the increase in the price of a barrel of oil, and Iraq has sufficient funds to establish satellite banks pretty much anywhere that they want. There's also progress toward the reinstitution and revaluation for a number of other reasons that have been stated internationally for years. First, we have the formation of the new government. We have the ongoing implementation of the white paper reforms. We have the continuing education program for their citizens with regard to the change in the exchange rate, and we have the fact that Iraq has been released from Chapter 7 since they've made full reparations to Kuwait. So all of this is pointing to the imminent reinstitution of their currency. Now, having said all of this, there are those detractors who say that, at least for the time being, the reinstitution of the dinar is not possible. They give essentially two reasons. First, that the money supply, there's simply too much dinar out there. And second, Iraq has simply not diversified its economic base and source of revenue. Even though they're receiving substantial revenues from the sale of petroleum, that in and of itself would not be sufficient to justify the reinstitution of their currency. So let me respond to those two concerns, because on their face they do seem legitimate. There are two groups of people that are talking about not having this occur. One group's the legitimate group, which I'll discuss in a moment, and the other's the illegitimate group, and I'll give you an example. These are the individuals, for their own selfish or political reasons, never want to see the dinar reinstituted and revalued. And I'll just give you one example. Let me go back to 2012. There were two individuals that basically stopped what Shabibi was trying to do, which was to reinstitute their currency. That was Maliki and Obama. Now, why didn't Maliki want the reinstitution? Because Maliki was a radical Shia, pro-Iranian, anti-democratic, did not want to see Iraq progress and established their parliamentary democracy. They wanted Iraq to remain a satellite of Iran, and of course he wanted to continue his nefarious activities of pilfering the nation. Obama, on the other hand, made his political bona fides, one reason at least, was his distaste for the Iraq war, which he called the bad war. So to see Iraq emerge as a stable, secure, modern, sovereign nation would mitigate against that argument. And second, Obama knew that the reinstitution of the dinar would result in the creation of anywhere from 6 to 10 million new millionaires in the United States, and these people would not be supporting Obama's objective politically of larger government and higher taxes. So for their own reasons, these individuals did what they could to stop, or at the very least postpone, the reinstatement of the currencies. Well, I think that group is pretty much done. But the group that's left are the ones that make these other arguments. So let's deal first with the money supply. Yes, there is a substantial amount of dinar out there. But the CBI established a program to reduce the money supply, that is, of the dinar. The first thing they did earlier last year was to substantially reduce the value of the Iraqi dinar. Now, at that time, a lot of individuals that were involved with the dinar, and certainly many of our clients, were very disheartened and said, Jim, the dinar's going the other way. This thing's never going to reinstitute. My argument was, on the contrary, what they've done is reduce the value of the provisional 3-0 currency because they're trying to collect that currency. Second, when the currency does reinstitute, the 3-0 provisional currency that still exists within Iraq will lose the last 3 zeros. So a $25,000 dinar would be 25 dinar. A $10,000 dinar would be a 10 dinar note. So that, again, substantially reduces the money supply. Lastly, the currency that the people outside of the country, such as ourselves, hold, will be exchanged. We'll get U.S. dollars for that currency. That 3-0 currency will then either be shipped to Iraq or be destroyed and digitally transferred to Iraq. So that currency will be retired. Now, will there be inflation and the loss of purchasing power in the countries that have produced substantial dollars in their own currency to do the exchange? Yes. But again, that has nothing to do with the money supply of the dinar. So I think that the money supply issue, when you look at it in its totality, is not going to be an issue for the reasons that I stated. Now, the other issue is that many say that the dinar cannot reinstitute and revalue until they have sufficiently diversified their economic revenues, i.e. creating the sectors of farming, industry, trade, tourism, and then, of course, they need to fund the international contracts to rebuild their grid and their infrastructure. My argument in response would be that the reinstitution of the dinar would not be an impediment to this diversification. It would actually be the catalyst for the diversification, because in order to accomplish all of this, Iraq would need to have a viable international currency. The U.S. dollar reserves they hold are not sufficient to provide for all of the expenditures in country, to provide for the international contracts to rebuild their grid and their infrastructure, and then to conduct international trade. So to me, while I can understand these arguments come from a legitimate place, I think that the reinstitution of the dinar basically overcomes all of them. So that's where we are today. In conclusion, I still feel that an argument can be made that we can expect a reinstitution at any time. Now, we've been involved in this for a long time. There's always what I call the X factor. Something could come along that is completely unforeseen, because the things that we've been told need to happen have occurred. So the only thing left are X factor issues, and I know of none right now, although, as I said, we've been in this long enough to know anything's possible. But if I were you, I'd be prepared. I'd make sure my paperwork's in order. For those of you that have our trusts, I think you should review your papers, make sure everything's ready to go, because this literally, in my opinion, could happen at any time. Now, again, for those of you calling in for the first time, or those of you that have not gotten your affairs in order or may not understand what that involves, I strongly suggest you contact us, get our no obligation initial package. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com, to learn a little bit more about us. But if you actually want a package, you should either email us that request to trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com, or you can call our phone service, which is 307-274-4122, and request our package. I'll get a package out to you as quickly as I can. Again, it's a no-obligation package. You can review all the information. Contact us by email or phone if you have any additional questions. If you wish to proceed, all you need to do is submit your application and fee. Once we have them, if there's any issue with your application, I'll call to resolve that. At that point, everything will go to our paralegals. The trust should be prepared and delivered to you within 3, certainly 5 working days. Time may be short, so I strongly suggest you move quickly. We're moving as quickly as we can, and we're getting the trusts out within 3 days. So, again, thanks so much for listening to the call. We will be back next Wednesday, and I do really anticipate a full call next Wednesday. If something of a dramatic nature should happen between now and next Wednesday, then we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.